from the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hello and welcome to Talking Catholic, the official podcast of the Camden Diocese. This is Mary McCusker, one of the Talking Catholic co-hosts, and a very happy new year. I was just told that this is the first podcast of 2020, so happy new year and happy new decade.
Yeah,
and I'm
it is a
here
happy
with
new year.
The other host, Mike Walsh.
Hey, Mary, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
That's good. I am pleased that we're finally in the winter season. I made my first fire in the house the other night. It was nice and cold. This is my kind of weather. This is cold, brisk, brittle weather.
This
you're gonna
weekend
go outside,
it's going to be close to 70 degrees.
That is not my kind of weather. I don't like that kind of weather.
God, you're a psychopath.
I know, it's the worst. Well, when you're a person of size like myself, cold has a lot of benefits. You wear a lot of clothing. It's
hides everything.
It's perfect. It's good.
Must be nice.
Yeah, it is. So we're back over at your house today. This is nice.
Yes,
Not
here
your
we
house.
are in Camden at Catholic Charities headquarters at 1845 Haddon Avenue. So we're not stuck in the vault.
That's right.
We have a nice open room.
No vault anxiety for you this time. I know that as soon as that vault door closes, you're less than thrilled.
Yeah, my heart starts palpitating and I start sweating. It's not a pretty picture. I'd much rather be here.
Yes, well,
this is my home territory.
I call this my home away from home. Everyone knows. I've said this to everyone. Whenever I'm having a bad day, I like to come over to Catholic Charities, and all the good that's being done over here just fills my heart. I hang out with the case managers a little bit, see some of the clients, talk to you guys. It's
rainbows and butterflies.
Listen, the
at
work,
all times.
The work that's done at the Catholic Charities is difficult work. In my line of work, we will often say, we're not saving babies, but often that's not the case in this side. You guys actually are saving babies and saving families and really doing the Lord's work here in Camden and all throughout South Jersey.
And for you and me, we get to highlight that, but we're not the ones actually doing it.
We're not doing the work, although we do like to talk to the folks that are doing a lot of the work and when we're here, and we're doing that again today. Just remind me, how many offices are in South Jersey? Is it 6?
6 total.
Yeah, 6 total offices throughout the...
No, actually, I'm sorry. 6 counties, 9 offices
6
total.
counties, 9 offices. All right, there you go. I knew
a
there
lot
was a
of
6 in there
territory.
somewhere.
Yeah.
But we're actually having, this is a special episode for me because we finally gotten what I lovingly refer to as the white whale on, the person who has been able to avoid being interviewed.
Did you just call him a whale?
I did. What?
Wow.
That's more of a reference to Moby Dick than his size or coloring, but he's been able to avoid us highlighting him. I've been working for the diocese for 4 years now, and he's been able to avoid the microphone all this time, and yet he's the second in command here. I give him a lot of credit.
It's true. Our guest today, I'll introduce him in a minute because his title is a mouthful, but is Dr. Andy Zmuda, who has been here for a very long time and has overseen so many different programs and knows more about this place than I think anybody. But he's an expert at avoiding any type of highlight or spotlight, and especially something like this. I wish I could hold a camera to his face right now because every article I said, can I get a quote from you about this? Can I tell a story about this amazing work you did? No. He just is one of the most humble people, and to an infuriating level for people like you and me who are supposed to be highlighting the good works.
Welcome.
So welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be with you, Mary and Mike, and I feel the love.
Yeah, it's true. So many projects we've worked on, Andy's been a part of, and I would say that probably a third of our podcasts, maybe more, have been Catholic Charities related.
It's true.
And Andy has never made it on.
This is the guy behind so much of it.
Andy, I don't know what she did to you to get you on here, but thank you for whatever blackmail you were able to pull off, Mary. That was good.
Well, somebody bailed this week. Cough, cough, Cindy LeBron. But we'll get to her. So Andy stepped in last minute. So thank you very much, Andy.
Thrilled to be here. It's wonderful to be here. Yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit of my experience with Catholic Charities and the sort of being a voice representative of all of the great work that we do here. That brings a great amount of joy to me. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad. Now, can you tell us your full title? Because I know I'll butcher it, and I know there's a couple titles involved.
Sure.
Here.
So it's the Director of Program Operations and Integration. When I assumed this role a number of years ago, our executive director, Kevin Hickey, and I talked about what the priority for this sort of operations manager, if you will, would be, and integration was such an important part of that. So we have, in some cases, dozens of different programs, and we work really hard to make sure that sort of the left hand and the right hand know what we're doing, and it's absolutely consistent with our mission as a Catholic agency that the best way to empower our clients is to empower our staff, our employees, and one of the ways to do that is through knowledge, through giving them the resources that they need to be able to deliver the resources to our clients that we serve, and integration is one of the most powerful ways to do that. So it's intentional, and I think it's been fruitful in producing some decent results. I'm pretty happy.
And that has to be hard. I mean, when you have 6 counties. Each county has different problems, with the same mission for every county. Each program has different needs, different staff, different clients, different goals and funders, and bringing all of that together. And I mean, that has to be hard. I can't imagine anybody but you doing it. I wouldn't be able to do that in a million years.
Well, it certainly has its challenges, and we're unique in our work. Because of our Catholic identity. We share our social work and social services work with a lot of other really good nonprofit agencies in the southern 6 counties. But what makes us really, I think, special and set apart and unique is the extra sense of purpose, and that includes, I think, an extra effort. One of the things that we like to, because of our Catholic identity and our Catholic mandate, and one of the things that we like to talk about in staff meetings and director meetings that we try to sort of use as one of our mantras is that when others say no, we say yes. And that can be particularly challenging. Now, that doesn't mean that we always have the answer that will solve the problem, but we always want to, at the very least, be able to work with our clients so that they feel that there is some support, some help, some assistance, that somebody cares in a special way and is walking with them in some of the most difficult and challenging parts of their lives, and seeing there's a lot of sort of scriptural components to our work, but being able to be reflective of Matthew 25 and giving to someone who was hungry or thirsty or imprisoned in a very direct and personal way. Yeah.
And I think that's part of what makes your role so unique. In addition to supervising all of the different directors in the different counties, I know you've had a lot of hands-on encounters with our clients themselves. So I imagine that gives you a unique perspective, as a supervisor and a leader. It reminds me of tax season, which is coming up, which everyone's about to stop the podcast now because nobody likes to hear about taxes. But that is a classic example. You've been involved in our tax program, for example, for I don't know when it actually started.
I believe this is our 8th year.
8 years, wow.
Yeah.
And that's just one element of the asset development program, right? But we can get to that later. But I wanted to ask about, for example, tax season's coming up, right? So each year, we get different people involved with this, right? So we have which schools are it, or which schools are involved this year in our diocese?
This year we have 2 high schools involved as volunteers. We have Bishop Eustace and Camden Catholic. And between the 2 schools, we'll have close to 20 student volunteers. These are juniors and seniors that are trained in preparing taxes, and they'll come to our location here on Haddon Avenue at least every Saturday throughout tax season and spend 6 or 8 hours here as volunteer tax preparers. They go through what amounts to about a 40-hour training between some online components. The IRS has some really wonderful training, e-training that is really adaptable for high school students who are just so intuitive about e-learning these days. And we do some live training at the school sites, and then there's a certification test. There's actually 3 certification tests that they go through, and they are as well prepared as any tax preparer. I'm not going to say that they're CPA level, but in terms of doing more than just the basic tax returns, they're quite astute, and they do an excellent job.
And I've been involved with this the past few years in my role as a communicator. It's a lot of storytelling, but having that opportunity to see clients face to face. Yes, Mike, he's looking at me in shock. I know how to prepare taxes.
Well,
I was trained.
As a fellow wordsmith, we're not known for our numbers ability. I had to marry somebody.
I almost bombed accounting, and I probably shouldn't be saying this on a podcast, but yeah, that was the only class I almost failed in college was accounting. I hated Excel. I hated numbers. I hated everything. So I thought I was going to hate taxes, but you get to see clients one-on-one and have that, I don't know what the word is for it, that encounter with them and talking to them. And these are the people that we represent at the agency and ultimately the people we serve.
And let's face it, if you're not familiar with doing your taxes, or for that matter, doing taxes, period, it can be frightening. Particularly when you know that you can be audited or something negative can go on. Plus, I'm sure the e-learning is very good, but when I look at that tax form, it might as well all be in Greek to me. I'm like, I do not know.
Well, you married an accountant,
yes,
so
which helps. She translates. But
these kids are wizards. I mean, I ask them for help, and that speaks volumes to their intelligence, not my lack of intelligence. They really are great.
But, I'm curious, what clients come in for that kind of work? Like, you serviced a lot of different kind of clients.
We do, and this is a program designated by the IRS, and it's the moniker is VITA, VITA, and it stands for Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, and it's designed for individuals or families who are below a certain income threshold. I think this year it's $57,000 as a gross income, and so these are families, individuals and families that the IRS has identified for primarily 2 things. Number one, folks that may not otherwise file taxes, and those that would likely qualify for tax credits and refunds that would help as an asset development and asset builder. So helping them to use those refunds and credits to create savings and even investment in school or other types of asset building programs, or even just becoming banked for the first time, opening a savings account or a checking account. It's a kind of an innovative way that the IRS is trying to assist in that way. So that fits beautifully with the folks that we serve. So we're not preparing tax returns with like K-1s, and we do work with folks that are that have some investments and some small. They have their own business, and we can help them at an advanced level do that. But for the most part, it's a lot of retirees, a lot of working families. I mean, you can imagine, right? It's the working individuals, and the other. There are a lot of good tax preparations agencies that people can go to. One of the other advantages of using a program like this is that sometimes the filing fees can be a little onerous for a family to afford, even if they get a significant refund. they count on that refund as part of their household income for the year. Our services are free, so they save that tax prep money, but we also are able to do electronic filing, which then we can also do direct deposit, so they could get their refunds just as quickly as they would with any other service. So it helps to kind of normalize that experience for them, and even put a few dollars back into their pocket that they might otherwise have to spend to do that.
Right.
How were you able to make this? I mean, the program itself is great, but how are you able to incorporate the high school kids into this? Like, where did that genesis come from?
That's a terrific question. I
like to ask those.
Yeah, I wish I had a terrific answer. I honestly don't remember. I think we had a. So Catholic Charities from time to time will get Catholic high schools that will come in to volunteer either on a weekend and I think it was during one of those engagements that we were talking with somebody. I think it was at Bishop Eustace, because they were the first school to do this with us. And one thing led to another, and I think they felt confident that there was enough training that the students could feel comfortable. It meets their obligation for their
like service project.
Their service project. And actually, to be honest, I think the dirty little secret was that they could get all of their hours through this program in a very short amount of time, and which allowed them to then not have to do like all of the rest of the service throughout the year if they didn't want to. So because it is a lot of time in a short amount of time. Instead of 2 hours a week over the course of the year, they're doing in some cases 8, 10, 12 hours in 1 week. And so it's a major commitment.
I'm fine with that. I'm a big proponent of efficiency. You can narrow that time frame down. That's great for people.
Some of them came back even after they fulfilled their hours. I remember that last year, and it's interesting hearing their perspective. They're sitting across from people sometimes their age. I remember a specific encounter with a kids these days, I sound so old, but with this high school student who was filing taxes for somebody not much older than him, and this client was actually the head of household. So he was, the one responsible for providing for his mother and his sisters. And I remember the student preparing them was kind of just floored by this, but then they had a conversation, and seeing moments like that of, that encounter. And, I didn't go to a Catholic school in South Jersey, but I grew up I went to Eastern, a wealthy high school, and, we didn't get exposed to any type of encounters like that. So it really is a great opportunity for the students too. And they handle it very well, I think.
It's one of the best parts of the program. I love that we can provide this service and help people to build their own personal assets and help with the stress of getting taxes done. Those are all wonderful reasons to do it. But one of the biggest benefits is to see how it helps to transform through this engagement.
Right.
The students who are so generous in their time, and to watch, on Saturdays, moms and dads bring them in the morning, early in the morning, drop them off and pick them up, and it's a significant sacrifice for 2.5 or 3 months.
Yeah.
But to watch how generous and even gentle and respectful they are with clients, taking it very seriously, but treating it with they sort of treat it as if it was their own parents or grandparents they're working with. Right?
It's true.
And we talk a little bit about that, but we don't teach that. That's sort of a natural part of how they engage, and I think it helps. Mary, I loved what you said that reminding me that that we've had students who have graduated and then come back and volunteered. This, I think, continues to be a part of their formation and who they are, and connecting that with their faith.
Absolutely.
And helping them to understand the mission of Catholic Charities and as part of the church in South Jersey, and how this connects them to that redemptive work, right? And being able to be a part of somebody's lives in a very special way. And it's a lot of wonderful service projects, and helping out at a food pantry, or even like the Cathedral Kitchen, and even getting to know people. But here you get to hear that they're married, or they're divorced, or they have these kids, or how much they've made.
Working 4 jobs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you get into their lives in ways that you will never.
That paper says a lot that they bring in.
And people,
you're right.
People trust you, and they talk about these things, and you get to know them. There's been, people who after they get their taxes done, I mean, for a half an hour, 45 minutes, and they'll hug the students.
Oh, I know.
Almost to a person, they ask, "Oh, where do you go to school? And what are you thinking about going to college? And we can't believe that you're 17 or 16 and doing this." But there's no worry. Like, they know they're trained and they do a great job.
I'm actually getting teary-eyed just remembering this. Like, it really is a moving experience for them, and witnessing that engagement and
on top of all of that, in terms of fulfilling the operational mission of Catholic Charities, they do great work.
They do.
And we partner with an organization in actually out of Pennsylvania called Pathways PA that helped us to get started, and has really been our liaison and even mentor in a lot of ways to make sure that we do really good work. We get a small stipend from them every year to do it, and it helps to buy donuts for clients or whatever on Saturday mornings.
Right.
But it's been they've been very encouraging, and we I think last year, so we started out, I think our first year we did maybe 40 or 50 tax returns. Over the last few years, we've averaged just under 300 tax returns, and we're one of the only providers in the city of Camden that does this. And I think we're the only one that will do it year round. So we're listed on the IRS website. If somebody has an issue in July or August, they can call us and we'll still continue to do that. Now, we don't advertise that. Obviously, we want people to get their taxes done within the time frame, but we do work with a lot of folks that need to go back in previous years, or who have problems with previous year tax returns that we can help to help them to maybe get some resolution to.
Yeah, it's a shame to see every now and then there's somebody who has, they went to a kind of like I don't want to say scammer, but they went to somebody who maybe was trying to trick them, and maybe they didn't know any better, and suddenly they happen to owe the IRS thousands of dollars that they shouldn't, I know I've knocked on your door a few times saying, I really need your help with this case, because there's no way this person can pay this amount. And I say, who did you go to? There are the horror stories, but I know you end up quality checking every single return. We do. So you're you've really become a tax expert in addition to everything else.
Do you get other volunteers beyond the high school kids?
We have from time to time individuals will contact the IRS directly and say, I'd like to serve in the Camden area, and we've been able to help get them connected with our work. A lot of times the schedules may not work, so Saturdays aren't necessarily convenient for them, but if we can't facilitate that, we'll help them get connected with someone else, maybe in one of the other counties that can do that with them. But for the most part, it's primarily students. We have a few staff that volunteer their time. I think 6 or 7. Mary has been very generous in her time over the past several years, that will come in on Saturdays and help to supervise and even do tax returns and make sure there's a high quality outcome. But we're always open to folks who are interested in helping. There's another area of volunteer opportunity here in sort of, I'll call it sort of hospitality. So as individuals show up on a Saturday to get their returns done, we have to make copies of their paperwork and help them to fill out all the forms, and that can take a little while. And having people who may not be comfortable doing tax returns but would love to do that kind of work, we always need as many people as we can to help greet people and help them to get prepared. So there's
a place for everyone.
There really is.
Yeah. And it's good. The kids, they keep us young. It's interesting hearing the side conversations they have about, what's trending. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm getting so old. I can't relate to these kids anymore. But
you get used to it. Don't worry about it.
It's nice being around the young kids.
Yeah. But that's really a program that's certainly going to be on your radar in the next couple of months as we prepare for tax day.
And that's part of the IDA program, the can you tell us a little bit about the bigger?
Sure,
bigger
it fits within our overall asset development programs, right? We look at the opportunity to help clients build savings or use their refunds or credits to increase their own personal financial assets. And then we have other programs that fit within the asset development category of programs. You mentioned the IDA program, which is short for Individual Development Account. This is effectively a matched savings program. We've operated a matched savings program for, I think, probably the last 10 or 12 years now. Wow. We've had them specific to certain client demographics. So, for instance, refugee IDA program, and then more broadly over the last 8 or 9 years with individuals and families that would qualify based on their income. So there's a certain threshold of what would be considered lower income families, that this is a vehicle to help them to build their net worth, their assets through home ownership, through post-secondary education, or through starting or expanding a small business.
Right. And there's been a lot of success with that. So basically it's for every dollar they put away into the account. I don't want to get too bogged down in all the details behind this, but they save $1 and in turn receive $1 for every one they save.
So they actually, in our program, they actually get $2 for every dollar they save.
Yeah.
So the investment is matched 2 to 1.
Right. And that must be so helpful for people trying to start businesses, like you said, going back to school, getting a home. I mean, that's so important, and the value of saving and having that ability to.
And how is that program supported?
It's supported. There's the federal government has had a demonstration project called Assets for Independence that unfortunately was suspended a few years ago. There's some talk of reestablishing it, but we were a grantee through this Assets for Independence program. And in order to participate in that, for every dollar that the federal government provided, you had to have a non-federal dollar in match. So we were able to identify resources through some non-restricted funding. Some of it came from organizations like United Way and a few other foundations that were very generous in helping us to do this. Yeah. So we've been able to, over 3 grant periods, have about $350,000 in both federal and then also $350,000 in non-federal matched. So those are the 2 sources, each one of them providing $1 per dollar that the individual saves.
Yeah. And I know I've interviewed a couple of these clients before who, I know one of them started his own business, Mr. Waters. I remember him, and just seeing him light up the way he talked about how excited he was to own his own business, how he's always dreamed of this. And he talked about, I want to provide for my family. He was born and raised in Camden, and just, had that ambition and fire. And the way he kind of took off with this program was just amazing to hear. And I know there's been so many success stories that families and individuals have had. Is there a favorite one or a recent one you can think of? There's been a lot over the years,
right? Yeah. I mean, you get so close with folks that are working on this. It's not an easy project, or it's not an easy program to be successful, and it requires, in some cases, 18 to 24 months of a commitment of saving. It's intentionally designed to help change savings behaviors for individuals and families. So it's not a quick in, quick out kind of thing, right? Part of it is helping them to establish better savings habits, and part of that then is done over the course of a certain amount of time. They receive a lot of support, case management, but also a lot of I hate to use the word financial education, but what it amounts to, we talk a lot about the different areas of what it means to earn, to budget, to spend, to save their resources, whether it's a job or a public benefit or some other kind of asset, and how they deploy those assets, and how they both historically, culturally, and thinking of all the different variables that you can imagine the difference between a 22-year-old young woman and a 57-year-old man, and how they see money and their history with money. And so we work with them to come to understand what assets and money means to them, and how they their relationship with it. So that takes time to help work through that process.
And that's so important. And that's, I don't know about you guys, I never had a class on that in high school. Budgeting, taxes, basic understanding of saving and spending.
Credit, insurance.
Credit, I mean, that's all. I didn't even know what that was, frankly, until a few years ago. Like some of these concepts, and I went to college. You know what I mean? People grow up without an understanding of this stuff, and imagine people who haven't had an education or haven't had, family members who have ever had a bank account. I mean, things like that. People who live in poverty just don't have those resources and understanding.
You make a good point. It's not about intelligence. It's about having it. Okay, so I now understand all this stuff, but it took 20 years of marriage to an accountant to be able for me to understand it. In my early years, much like you, I mean, good grades. Went to college, the whole bit. Well, not necessarily good grades in college, but prior to that, I had good grades. And but I never had any of that banking training. I really didn't understand. When I first met my wife, I used to keep.
She probably thought you were a dummy.
She did, and that's not an insult, because I was. I used to keep all of my statements, not all my statements, but I used to keep my finances on a folded up piece of a folded up Post-it. And kept it in my wallet, and that was how I kept track of my bank account.
Even that gives me anxiety, Mike. Well, Come on.
and it was, and I didn't grow up wealthy. It wasn't like we were loaded with money or anything like that. I really didn't have any training, and this isn't a shot at my parents. This is just because of the manner in which I grew up. It just wasn't. This wasn't something I was focusing on. I was plenty destitute, but I didn't have that connection. So being able to provide that kind of stuff. All right, so we've talked about the great work we've done with the high school students, or the Catholic Charities has done with the high school students, teaching them the tax accounting, or how to do taxes, as well as working with these clients and educating them on how to do their taxes. But then there's another program where you're creating self-sufficiency for in very technical, for most people, very technical areas that are easy for. I mean, let's face it. Even in me, like I have to do my monthly account, my monthly expense report, right? Mm-hmm. Man, it's the thing I want to do least in the world, and I hate it. Even being a director of a program myself, going through all those numbers. I'm a words person, just like you, Mary. Yep. That is where I can write a press release, I can write a story, I can take pictures, I can do all that stuff. Getting in the numbers is just not something that I was trained at. It's not something I enjoy doing. But for a lot of people, you got to do it. And if you want to be a small business owner, in particular, which is still the cornerstone of a lot of Americana. These are the things that are going to keep you in business,
right?
So it ends up being real important, and I mean for all sorts of people, but in particular people who are trying to rise up, which is quite frankly almost all of your clients.
Yeah. You bring up a great point, Mike, and one of the ways that we've addressed that anxiety that comes with that, in our own ability to teach that and do that. I mean, for the most part, we're social workers. We know how to do social work and deliver social services, and this is a little bit outside of that traditional sphere, if you will. We've we've been using a program developed by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau called Your Money, Your Goals. The reason there's a lot of good programs out there that deliver financial education, financial empowerment, these curriculums. The reason we've landed with this, number one, is that it's produced by the CFPB, which has an incredible amount of other resources in terms of consumer protection and advocacy that's really helpful. So we can help to make referrals and have a relationship with them in that regard. But it's designed for frontline social work staff. So the person that's doing an intake with someone that's coming in for, let's say, assistance with a utility bill, can sit with that person and within 20 minutes have a conversation with them about any topic. And we're trained in doing this. It could be about credit score, about insurance, or about budgeting, or about employment. The way that it's designed helps to empower us and our staff to be able to deliver it that way, and it's done in a very straightforward but then has in a straightforward way, but has a lot of support behind it. So if we felt like you needed to leave them with some supporting information or lists of websites or things that we just don't have time or the intensity to do with them, they leave with that information, and that's another part of empowering them, right? And then helping them to maybe walk a little bit on their own, but having someone that cared and has pointed them in the right direction. So we manage that anxiety in healthy ways for ourselves to be able to do that. And it was one of the biggest obstacles that I was. So all of our staff have been trained in Your Money, Your Goals. And one of the biggest obstacles was staff saying, well, why am I going to do this when I'm not sure I understand this myself, and quite frankly, I was just going through my head thinking, right?
I don't really know.
A lot of us suffer from the very same ills that the folks that we work with suffer from, and so we talk about that, and we deal with it, and we work through it, and sometimes it can be really empowering and transformative for folks that we work to, our colleagues.
It's true. I remember my dad has always told me the importance of saving and, save for retirement. The second you get your first paycheck, I'm like, yeah, and kind of just tuned in and out. But then I think my first year working here, I was like, oh God, I probably should have listened to him a little bit more, because I need to start saving for retirement. And I was I hope my dad does not listen to this podcast.
I was just about to say,
or my mom, for that matter.
I'm going to send this to your parents.
No. But it was Andy I went to. I said, I don't know who to ask this question to about saving for retirement. My dad's told me about it. My mom's told me about it. I haven't really paid attention, and I don't know anything about it. So even I can but that's me. I don't do social work, but just basic things like that.
Mary,
it's so important. Andy gave me advice, and I felt, but I didn't feel embarrassed, because that's the type of person you are.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because it really connects to this theme. And when you talk about money, especially when we talk about it in the context of so the example that you're using is like just not knowing, which is one thing, but then can you imagine not knowing and also being trapped in a condition of poverty, right?
Yeah, where you have no one to go to,
and it
or
brings
ask.
So much shame with it, right?
Yeah, right.
And one of the things that we are conscientious and intentional and is to just help to get rid of that shame, that there's no judgment, that we all walk together in this, right? And so confronting that as colleagues is like I used the word before, empowering and healthy and those kind of things, but it creates a healthy environment for people to work with, and that's perfectly consistent with what a Catholic agency should be doing in terms of advocating and empowering, and it gets to the heart of some of these really difficult issues for folks.
And that's why Andy is the director. I mean, just hearing him talk about this, it speaks volumes to, the type of leader he is. And
it goes back to something we said about the staff here at Catholic Charities. I've said it repeatedly, is that we're
everyone, just so great, aren't we?
Well, the truth of the matter is, it's true. It's like I come here for a reason to reboot my own spirituality from time to time, only because in my line of work, I have to deal with a lot of negative things that are focused on the Catholic Church. But everything you do here is good. Everything, the entirety of this organization is to do good out in the world. I mean, heck, you just came back from Jacksonville where you were being trained on disaster relief.
Yep.
How did that go, by the way? We haven't talked about it since you've been back.
It was great. At first, when Mr. Hickey said, is this something you'd be interested in? And I looked it up. I said, this is about disaster preparedness. And I said, well, I'm in communications and marketing. But little did I know just how much that can be wrapped up in disaster preparedness, because once I looked at the workshops that Catholic Charities USA was offering, I said, so much of this is up my alley. Yeah. Communications plans before, during, after, when a disaster does strike, whether it's Sandy. I feel like the world's on fire right now between Australia, Puerto Rico just got hit with a bunch of hurricanes, earthquake. Yeah. 2 earthquakes, I think.
Yeah.
This training, it was a great opportunity to bring Catholic Charities staff from all over the country to Jacksonville to learn more about best practices when it comes to preparing your communities for disasters. And there was something for everyone. It wasn't just people whose main role was planning out, like Melissa Herska, for example, one of our colleagues. She had a huge hand in rebuilding Atlantic County after Hurricane Sandy hit. So I always thought these types of trainings were just for people like her, but I mean, it's a really all hands on deck type of thing. And they said, and this stuck with me, they said the best time to prepare for a disaster is now.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely right.
Because it's better to have a plan in place beforehand, obviously.
And truthfully, when you think about, that's actually not a surprise to me that there was so much communications related to that.
You would have loved it.
I mean,
everything from press releases to this is how you interact with the government, and it was really informative.
Well, like we were like Andy was saying before, like principally everyone who works here is some form of a social worker. Not you and I, but everyone, Mary, but everyone else.
I wish I was.
Well, there's still
I don't have I'd be crying with the clients though. I get too emotional.
She does. That is a very good point. She has the heart of a social worker. But it's true. I mean, most of the people who work here are social workers, so there is no mindset towards communications. But communications into disasters is very tricky. There was actually the government. I almost started it a few years ago, and then I decided to get my master's degree instead. But they were giving a 13-week certification course. FEMA was a 13-week certification course just in disaster communications, because when you were in the midst of something like that, the last thing you're thinking about is how to keep the lights on and people fed, clothed, dry, things like that. Not how do I talk to the media. And from that, how do I start getting donor support?
That was another big topic.
As another element, which is when Superstorm Sandy hit here, that was something that this Catholic Charities was remarked, was how well they were able to get their donor base to begin helping to support those victims in Atlantic County. Yeah. In addition to all the other everything else that was being done. You probably saw
a lot of that too, Andy. You were here for that. And Kevin Hickey was running our Facebook at that time, which always gives me a good laugh. I know, it's terrifying and hilarious. But I remember him saying, he was posting pictures. I'm like, I can't imagine him even working Facebook, but but I know you were here for that too, Andy. Yeah. And but you're right. All the tools you need to be prepared for that.
And that is, I mean, for our listeners as well, the way you prepare for disaster and any crisis is to make sure you're prepared before the thing hits, because you'll never see it coming.
It's true.
Haven't had a crisis yet that I saw coming.
Don't jinx us.
No, it's going to happen. No. People always say, like, because you and I do a lot of event management, and they always say, I hope everything goes well. I'm like, no, things are going to go wrong. It's up to us to make sure that whatever goes wrong,
fires out.
We can fix it. That's very much case management.
I love that you mentioned your involvement in this disaster training, that someone who has a communications responsibility would, even though it's logically, fits perfectly that someone would have that training, but it was intense. I mean, Mary, you could now be deployed to assist boots on the ground, frontline with assessment and case management, those kinds of things. You've got almost the full spectrum of it, right?
Oh gosh.
Which is so it's more than just how do we communicate, right? You have this really wonderful perspective, and I think I have to mention this because it's such an important part. Like that's one of the things that we do. We work really hard at Catholic Charities to do is to be innovative, to be creative, to not get trapped in so tightly defined roles that we can't be that we can't have this freedom to do these kinds of interesting things and be useful and resourceful beyond just what our job description is. That's a top-down message, and that comes from that expectation is set by the bishop's office, by the vicar's office, and you mentioned Mr. Hickey, Kevin Hickey, our executive director,
and you.
Well, but as the executives of the Diocese and Catholic Charities, they empower us to do that, and it's
stepping outside of our little silos. I mean, it's easy to be wrapped up in it, but you need someone to push you out of there every now and then.
The freedom to come up with new opportunities how to serve, right? And we're mission driven, but within that mission there is unlimited swath of how to serve. I'm thinking of the IDA program. I think it would be interesting to listeners of this podcast to share this, because this is sort of something. This would be the first time it's really kind of announced outside of even our office here. So we're talking about this IDA program. We'll build up it'll be a little bit of a
this better be good, Andy.
but anyway, this IDA program we've been very successful, and we have some wonderful colleagues that work very hard in all of our programs, and they get all of the credit for delivering the terrific services that we deliver. But we're known quite frankly, throughout the national network of IDA providers, both within the Catholic network of providers and even other, non-sectarian providers. And we get involved in going to other agencies to do trainings. They consult with us, and it's been a great opportunity. So there's a lot of really good knowledge and experience here, and one of the things, so we've recently been given a very generous grant from the Gennardi Foundation, and it was the Gennardi Family Foundation that has been earmarked to continue the work of our IDA program. And
That's
I told you
great.
about the suspension of we're so grateful and thrilled. I told you about the suspension of the assets for independence from the federal government, but we continue privately to think about how to continue to find these dollars to continue to move this forward. And there's so sort of the quote unquote announcement it's really not an announcement as much as it is just that we are actively working on a new model. So everything we've done up till this point has been for post-secondary education, so after high school and beyond, and that could be any accredited university or college or trade school, anything that has accreditation. We're working on thinking about how do we use gifts like the Gennardi Family Foundation and even others to work creatively to potentially deliver this to families that are struggling to pay for Catholic education before post-secondary, so elementary, middle, and high school. So we are in conversation with as many people that will listen to us to try to do that, both in the diocese and even in other Catholic agencies and organizations throughout the country. And it's an exciting opportunity to be innovative, to take something that works really well and we're really good at it, and to help leverage the money that's being invested in Catholic education from dioceses, from families, from donors, whoever it might be, and help them to benefit from all of the wonderful work that we've done in terms of helping families become more financially stable, make potentially a bigger investment, but now effectively what happens is that it triples that investment. right?
Yeah.
And could even go beyond that. So we feel it could have a terrific impact on how Catholic education gets paid for by families that might otherwise struggle, and dioceses that might struggle to do that as well.
Right.
There's no it hasn't been fleshed out yet, but we're onto something here. So
That is exciting news.
yeah, we're
I tell you, I every time I come here, this is what I'm saying. People gotta, if you are not making yourself familiar with your local Catholic Charities in your diocese, I really recommend it. We've done our best, with probably limited success, to promote all the great work that's being done here. And here's the other thing that people need to understand is every Catholic charity is a little different.
Yeah.
So what happens with Catholic Charities in the Diocese of Camden may not be what is happening in Trenton and Newark and Philadelphia and things like that.
Yeah.
So, but you should check it out, because there's a lot more to it than I think what a lot of people think that Catholic Charities does. And even in our case, we know that that some parishes just don't understand what Catholic Charities does. Can you give, as we're coming up with our last 5 minutes here, can you give us an idea of what Catholic Charities of Diocese of Camden, all the different programs that you work with?
Oh,
well, maybe
that's
not,
a hard
maybe not
thing
all
to
of them,
sum up in 5 minutes.
maybe a highlight reel.
It absolutely. I'm happy to. We serve anyone who might be in need of assistance, utility assistance, if there's an emergency in their vulnerable in their housing. We cut across all demographics of ages and genders, and we obviously would never discriminate in any way, shape, or form. We have private and federal and state funding, lots of different programs that we administer these grants. There is no typical client for us. We might work with a veteran. We might work with a working family. We might work with a single parent family. We might work with any. It wouldn't matter. All of our offices offer similar programs. So you can go to any of our offices to find assistance with sort of the basic emergency assistance, food and shelter and utilities. And then things like our veterans program is offered diocese-wide. We have some specific programs that work with individuals that are on public assistance who are trying to get full-time employed. And those are done only in certain counties. But anybody that walked into any of our offices and said, I'm trying to improve my employment situation or find a job, we would be able to work with them. So we've got lots of wonderful programs that we could figure out how to help and give them the service that they would need. Yeah. I know I'm sort of being vague with it because it's.
I think that encapsulates really the mission very well.
Want people to think that we can be all things to everybody, but we're a great place to start. If we can't, we will figure out a way to help.
And then how are you going to throw a question like that with 5 minutes left at Andy?
What do you want? I thought that was a good
great
answer.
encapsulation.
And it is true. Catholic Charities doesn't do everything, and sometimes some people forget that. And there are very specific programs that Catholic Charities and all Catholic Charities provide, but where any programs that Catholic Charities doesn't provide, Andy is absolutely right. I've never heard of anyone here came looking for something that wasn't directed someplace where that could be provided to them. And as you pointed out, this is not how does Mr. Hickey put it? At Catholic Charities, we're not just servicing Catholics. They say, well, why do you do this?
I know the quote you're thinking of.
Say the quote for me, because I always get it wrong.
Oh, I hope I don't butcher it now. He always says we don't help other people because they are Catholic. We help people because we are Catholic.
That's right.
And embrace Catholic social teaching and Catholic identity. And
the little bit of irony to that is not everybody that works here is Catholic.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd say the majority of people who work here are not Catholic, and that's perfectly fine as well.
Right.
It's like
they understand that
because it's
Catholic social teaching
right, it's the Catholic social teaching, and quite frankly, that was, I mean, that comes directly from Jesus, and you don't have to be Catholic, you don't have to be Christian, you can have an appreciation for Jesus's message to earth to help our neighbor and look after our neighbors and care for people, and that's all that really Catholic Charities is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at the
and
end
to
of the
have
day.
someone like Andy who oversees so many of these. I mean, we just talked about one program. Well, we talked about a few, but the asset development program, that's just one out of, I don't even know how many programs we have. So,
We're surrounded by
overseeing
just
all of
terrific
that,
people,
and
too,
that.
It is true.
So Mary,
Andy's the man behind it.
Mary,
Dr. Andy Zmuda, by the
Mary,
way.
you asked for a story. Do we have time for just a quick?
we
Okay,
can do a
so I
quick
would
story.
share.
Yeah.
It is a success story, but I think it kind of illustrates some of the potential power of the work that we do. So part of our IDA program, we've assisted a family in opening a restaurant, and I'll get to some of the specifics in just a minute. But there's a pretty interesting backstory behind it. So many months ago, I was coming out of a meeting with Mr. Hickey, walking back to the other side of the building to my office, and I happened to pass by the office of Jamie Reynolds, who's the executive director of Diocesan Housing Corporation, and we just we're just chatting, and I don't even remember how the topic came up, but he mentioned that he was very closely associated, I think even through some former association or friendship with a family, the Medina family, who were immigrants from Mexico, and they're here, and they had many years ago owned I think we were talking about Mexican food, and that would probably be a good something that Jamie and I would be talking about, our love of Mexican food. But anyway, he had mentioned that this family had owned a restaurant in I believe it was in Collingswood or Westmont, and had lost their lease. It had closed down, and they had a small catering business in I think it was even up at the Columbus Market or something, and they were struggling. They wanted to get this business reopened, and it had been years since they've had a storefront business, and he was trying to do anything he could do to help them, but it was clear that they needed financial resources that would help them, and I said, oh, it's a shame, because I remembered the restaurant that they had owned. I had actually gone to it, and it was a good experience. And I walked away, and I got through the door, and I did a U-turn. I came back, and it was sort of like the light bulb went off. I said, well, wait a second, we have this program, this IDA program, and we did a really kind of a brief kind of assessment. And it turned out that they would be a perfect fit for this. So we were able to get them connected with Michelle, our IDA person here in the Camden office, and she's bilingual. They're primarily Spanish speaking, and so there was a great connection there. The wife of this family, Mrs. Medina, is sort of the business manager, if you will. So she's the one. So there was a close connection there with her, and worked really hard. The name of the restaurant, so the good news is that the crescendo of all of this is that they were able to open their restaurant. It's called La Guadalupana. It's in Merchantville. It's on Park Avenue in Merchantville, and they're open a couple of months. They actually we asked them to. We had a training over the Christmas in December. They provided the food for the training. It was delicious.
It was amazing.
Fantastic.
Not just saying that, it was incredible.
And so
and this was all through the help of the IDA program that they were able to get this started.
They were able to save and buy new equipment, and we're gonna help them redevelop, retool their so that they can take credit cards now. We're going to help them redevelop their menu. They're a lovely family. They're hardworking. All of the great sort of immigrant hardworking, make it in America kind of story is there, and wonderful.
I'll
people.
be writing about it for the newspaper, so I'll flesh that one out, because that is a wonderful story.
I think the other, and I'll end after this point. But one of the things that was important was that it was up to them, right? So here they had this friend in Mr. Reynolds who just said, let me introduce them to you, and it was really up to them to decide this is what they wanted to do, and then to watch them activate that passion for and see this opportunity and come to life. That's what really kind of gets you up in the morning and wants you to bring you back to work here, to see people realize the potential that they have in themselves, in any way that is. And this is an interesting story, but it happens all day, every day in lots of different ways, and it's really satisfying and gratifying.
Yeah.
Andy,
that's a great story.
That is a great way to end the podcast. Thank you
really is.
very, very much.
We finally got the white whale or whatever you were babbling about earlier.
Andy the white whale. That's what it is. I got nicknames for everybody here. That's part of the thing that brings me joy. But thank you to our listeners for chiming in. Andy, thank you very much for coming on and all the great work that you do.
Thank you, Andy.
And Mary, thank you very much for setting this up. And to our listeners, thank you all for listening, and we'll chat with you again next week.
Thank you for listening to Talking Catholic.